Welcome back to another live edition on the Rock Pile tonight. Tonight we bring the No Huddle podcast back. We'll have Coach DeCola on, Nick from C-Bus, Coach Medicis. The next podcast that we have for the No Huddle, we'll have Coach Kramer is going to join us. He'll be on with us most of the way now through at least through the college football bowl game. So we'll have him on here in a couple weeks. We got a fun show for you tonight. We'll talk about the college football rankings. As Nick from C-Bus corrected me, as I still said, the BCS rankings. We'll talk about that. We'll bring on buy or sell tonight. We'll do some predictions. The big game this week, and this is for Coach Medicis when we bring him on, the Quarter Jug, Cortland State and Ithaca. We'll pick that one, and we'll pick some more games as well. So without further ado, I kept the yellow and blue background for C-Bus tonight, so I'm going to keep that up. I figured we're getting into a couple weeks away from the game, so we're going to go with yellow and blue tonight. So without further ado, let me bring on everybody. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight, guys?
I was good until I saw those colors. Now my eyes are starting to bleed a little bit, but
I'll make do. Where I actually have you here on the screen, you're kind of in the blue with the gold letter, so it's perfect for where you're at. I am pumped up to have you up.
He's got his red hat on, though.
He does. Well, I'll tell you what, when I was going through my agenda and I was sending you guys stuff, I said we could probably talk about the rankings the entire show. And we will spend most of the time. I'm probably going to jump around like I always do because I do want to get your guys' take on those rankings, and we'll get into that. For those that'll join, if you're watching on any of the platforms, if you have any questions, you just want to interact with us tonight, put them in the comment box. I know Cody will be on here talking about Oregon. And I'm going to say this before we get going. Don't sleep on the Ducks. I think they've played some better football since that shellac in week one, and Bo Nix looks like a completely different player. So we'll talk about that and more here in just a little bit. So we always start off with our takes. I'm going to go first this time because I always go last. I know C-Bus wants to hear about Michigan. So I just want to highlight a few things for them. For the first time, I'll say this, they've been a second half team. They've outscored their opponents 100-3. But I will say this, and C-Bus, you may disagree with me on this, and this is going to be part of my take at the end of the show. I am really disappointed in the Big Ten for scheduling. Michigan's schedule has been a cakewalk, non-conference schedule. The Notre Dame win for Ohio State looks a little bit better. Notre Dame still with 3 losses, but the Big Ten right now, they need USC, they need UCLA, because when we get into these rankings, it's a shame that the loser of that game, if they're both undefeated, is not going to get into the playoff because of the schedule. So I'm really disappointed in the Big Ten for the scheduling of how they did it. But I'll say this about Michigan. Jim Harbaugh, and I was looking through some numbers, and I want to throw these numbers at you guys, and you guys can jump in. Since he's been the head coach in 2015, they've spent 55 weeks ranked in the top 10, 31 weeks in the top 5, 10 weeks in the top 3. From 2008 to 14, when he was not the head coach, they spent 1 total week ranked in the top 10. 1 total week. I saw that stat the other night, and I said, wow, I really didn't realize that. So I thought that was cool. But one thing I'll say about Michigan, and C-Bus, whether they beat Ohio State in 2 weeks, I don't know if they do. I'm hoping the weather's bad, so it can be another windy 40-mile-an-hour wind, maybe on a neutral field, C-Bus, and nice weather. You know, Ohio State with that passing attack would probably be a 2 or 3 touchdown favorite, I think. Mm-hmm. One thing I will honestly say about Michigan, whether they beat Ohio State or not, the formula to play and beat the Buckeyes, control the line of scrimmage, run the football, make Ohio State one-dimensional. Now, Stroud can throw it 40, 50 times and still beat anybody, but I really think that this year, Michigan's line is better than what it was last year. My questions are going to be, I think Michigan's defense hasn't really been tested. Now, they're a top 5 defense in the country, so is Ohio State. And I think Ohio State's improvement has been unbelievable from where they were a year ago. But this Michigan defense, would take away Ajabo and take away Hutchinson, this defense up front might be better than what they were a year ago because they really don't have that 1 or 2 players. It's a multitude of players. But here's the one thing I'll say, and then you guys can jump in, is I'll say this about Michigan. And again, Ohio State Nick can slack them by 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks. And a lot of the analysts have said the same thing. There's more speed than they've had there in the past. And up front, Harbaugh finally has established an identity. They're going to run the football. They're going to be physical at the point of attack. Now, if they get down 2 scores, is McCarthy going to light you up? I don't know. He's kind of playing like Cade McNamara did last year, not really beating you downfield with the passing game. But I really like what they're doing. And I'm a little disappointed because this week they should hammer Nebraska. I was really excited for them to play a top 10, top 15 Illinois team, and then Illinois laid an egg. They're going to get them at home before they play Ohio State.
Ooh.
But having another ranked team in the Big Ten, listen, all Ohio State and Michigan have beaten, Nick, is Penn State. So when you look at their record, it's like, holy shit. Their record, all they have done is beat Penn State. And I think it's disappointing for the Big Ten because it's a 2-team race, and I still think that those 2 teams belong in the playoff if they play a really close game, depending on what happens, with some of those other teams, 5, 6, and 7. So I like where they're at. I think Blake Corum deserves to be at the Heisman presentation when they pick it.
What is RG3 talking about that he has him as number 1 on his list? Has he lost his mind? Corum's a great back, but
I'll say this:
let's not get carried away.
When they showed Sean Alexander and they showed Derrick Henry, the 2 last backs to win the Heisman Trophy, Blake Corum's got better numbers than both of them. It just so happens that right now your best players are your quarterbacks. And that award has really been a quarterback award for the last so many years. I'll say this. When we start talking Heisman Trophy, I'm going to tell you what. You guys know who has the best numbers in college football.
The Fordham quarterback, we know.
Well, no, besides him, because our RG3 keeps putting Shedeur Sanders on the Heisman watch. Sanders don't even have the best damn numbers in the FCS. Tim DeMorat does. How about Drake May down at North Carolina?
UNC.
He deserves it. He deserves.
You know what I mean? But that's my thoughts on Michigan. I'm happy where they're at.
And Rock, I don't disagree with you. I think where I have a hard time judging both schools, Ohio State and Michigan, to be fair, is exactly what you led off with. They're not tested.
No.
Right? So it's really hard for me. Yeah, I look at Michigan's offensive line and I look at the way their defensive line is playing, and I think they're both really formidable. However, I look at who they're dominating and I go, how do I know that that's legit or not? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I watched the first half of the Rutgers game, Michigan against Rutgers. Michigan was toying around with them, whatever. They play a so-so first half, and then they come out and they just grind you down and they wear you down. And when you're playing these lesser schools, which the majority of the Big Ten is, the formula that Michigan has is perfect, right? Because they're playing against schools that don't have the depth and don't have the talent to go 4 quarters against that style of offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was all over Michigan earlier this year, Rock. I agree with you. The Big Ten is soft. The conference is way down this year. Penn State, I think we could all agree. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think Penn State is, if you put them in probably the Pac-12, I think they probably have 3 or 4 losses this year. I don't think they're anything to write home about either. But I think what you can control is your non-conference schedule. And that's where I was upset with Michigan, is they scheduled absolutely nobody in the non-conference. That's the only thing you have a control over as a school, is your non-conference schedule. Whether or not they schedule Illinois for Michigan the third Big Ten game of the year, or the second to last, yeah, their ranking looks a little bit better, but it's still Illinois, right? At the end of the day, you have to be able to schedule decent opponents, and I get it. You don't know. Ohio State scheduled Notre Dame out, 7 years ago. You don't know what Notre Dame is going to be at that point when you do play them 7 years later. But it's a way better win than anything Michigan can throw out at to me from a non-conference perspective.
Well, what's even crazy is I was reading the stuff on, the realignment possibly when USC and UCLA come. They may throw out the East and West and just take the top 2. Could you imagine, though, if Michigan, Ohio State play back-to-back weeks And who knows? We'll see
Rock,
what happens.
in theory, you could play that game
Three
could happen
times.
3 times in the season,
Yep.
if depending on how the playoff were to break down.
Boy, you
Nick,
guys would love that playing 3 times.
Well,
no,
you know
I don't
what?
know. I would have a
don't-
heart attack. My heart can't take that.
I always say this. I think I'll always go to bat and say Michigan Ohio State's the best rivalry in all of sports. I know in the Army Navy game, I'm not taking anything away from that. The second one for me is the North Carolina Duke hoop game, because they're right down the street from each other, and they play each other twice during the regular season. They play each other in the ACC tournament. Sometimes they meet up. That's too much. I don't want to see that.
Right.
But it sure is
and
how
that's
nice
gonna,
when
and
they're.
that's gonna be it's gonna be an anomaly if it happens. But yeah, the possibility is definitely real. I think for sure.
Well, I know one team that might have played themselves out, and we'll see what happens. They still got them in the top 10. They still got a shot to win the ACC, Jake, and it'd be hard with a one-loss Clemson team that wins the ACC, still maybe with an outside chance to get in. What's your thoughts on Clemson?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they played a Notre Dame team, and just watching it just kind of made me a little bit sick of how they ended up playing. And I really think they have to make the change at quarterback, because if they can make the change at quarterback and those last couple of games win impressive, that could be, hey, we switch quarterbacks, kind of like the year that Trevor got hurt. Oh, we didn't, when we lost to Notre Dame the last time, he wasn't playing. So I think they need to make that change to show improvement, because if they stay with DJ and they barely get by these games, they don't have a shot getting back in. They have to go with impressive wins. And I was not so much mad at how DJ plays, other than I think he should run the ball more, because he had some nice runs, and I thought they should do that a little bit more often. But I go back to the offensive coordinator, Streeter. They don't seem like that same type of offense they've had with Tony, and then even with Scott, that just got fired from South Florida. And part of me is like, hey, bring Scott back. And
he'll be back.
That's when he recruited Trevor and all those guys, and it looked like a totally different offense.
You know what I'm disappointed in, though? I know people have been, when we started the year, people said that Clemson defense. Syracuse hung, 30 on them? Wake Forest should have beat them, hung, 40 on them? Notre Dame
should have beat them, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame physically beat them. So my question is, where's that defense been all year?
Well, I think that somewhat, I mean, even the Notre Dame, you had the block punt, you had the turnover. So, I mean, there's a couple points there. And even the Syracuse, you had an offensive turnover to the house. So I think it's not as much as the defense. I just think you're putting way more pressure on a defense when your offense is not scoring and you're not putting up points and you're not making a team a one-dimensional team. That I think Clemson's their best aspect, if they can make a passing team, other than Wake. Of course, I say that and Wake threw all over them, but if you can make a team one-dimensional, you're going to look very good. When you're in all those close games and a team can run, pass, and do everything, you're going to find gaps in a lot of defenses.
Well, what's a shame, too, is, if they had the one loss and they looked impressive throughout the season, I think people would be saying, geez, Clemson still got everything in front of them. Win the ACC, they're probably in the playoff. But they just haven't looked the part on offense. But the way we are today with this whole college football rankings, only taking 4 teams, what's really sad is that, and again, go back to Michigan, Ohio State. If both undefeated, it's a shame that the loser is out with a chance to play for a national championship. That's the way college football is. It's like, if you don't go undefeated, or if you have the one loss but you're a conference champ, you get consideration. That's why I can't wait for the 12 teams, because late in the season, some of these games, you might still have a chance to lose 2 games and still get in. But I think with Clemson, they just haven't looked impressive, and they still only have 1 loss.
Well, even with the one loss, if you think about it, if let's say even Ohio State, Michigan played the first game of the year, and whoever lost, and they both went out, your chances are better. It's almost like, when do you lose that game? People forget about the Oregon game. Oh, they played Georgia. They got crushed by Georgia. They looked awful, but everyone seems to forget that. It's like,
all
Oregon,
forgiven,
Oregon. It's like, wait a minute, it all depends on when they played them. Because if they played them this week in that same score, Oregon would have dropped all the way.
They're out.
They're out.
Well, and I want to jump in on the Clemson stuff too, Jake. The two things I see with Clemson is I agree with you on offense. Like, what is the identity that I look at a team this late in the season, and it's like by this point, if you don't have an identity, you're done. Like as far it's darn near impossible to hang your hat on anything with that team on offensive side. And then Jake, my question to you is, who's the best player on Clemson? Who's the best player?
For offense or defense?
No, on the team. Who's the best player?
Well, I think it's their running back, Shipley.
Right. And so and I would agree, but that's the other thing I feel like to me is what's missing from Clemson. When I used to watch Clemson, right, I would ask who's the best Clemson player on the team, and it was we named 4 or 5 guys, right?
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, right? We go down the line and go, oh, it's maybe him, it's maybe him, it's maybe him. And I look at Clemson, last year and even into this year, and I just go like, where's the wave of just athletes that just were overwhelming you? I just don't see it. I haven't seen it now for 2 years, and I don't think they've slacked off recruiting by any stretch. That's why I kind of point back to the coaching and what are they actually trying to do. From that perspective, it just jumps out at me.
Well, I mean, even
where
at
I'm used to seeing
receiver,
that.
it's tough because it's even last year you had the Rodgers kid was good. This year it's like it's hard to name a number 1 receiver, and to be honest, they might not even Ohio State. I think I can name all 3. Or Clemson, I struggle to even name them the 2, just because they're. I think they've struck out a little bit with the recruiting and thought this kid could be this. Where before they were hitting with Mike Williams, Ross.
It was just a laundry list, right?
Yeah.
So I want to go up to C-Bus here because the rankings when they came out, and we'll dive into these rankings, Ohio State had the 40-mile-an-hour winds against Northwestern.
It was like 55.
55, 60-mile-an-hour winds.
It was tough.
And they struggled. But a win's a win. Let's win and move on. 21-7. Are you happy with where Ohio State's at right now and how they've played the last couple weeks?
No. I think the offensive line the run game has taken a step back the last couple of weeks. They've both backs have been banged up. They've been banged up in the backfield really all year. Henderson's been in and out. Williams has been in and out, and really the running back that what we wanted to see in down here was his name's Evan Pryor, and he blew out his knee in fall camp. And so they've been really thin back there as well. The one wrinkle and the one positive that might have came out of that Northwestern game, and I struggle to call it a game because it felt somewhat like a debacle at times, was Stroud tucked the ball a couple times and kept the defense honest. A lot of us have been screaming for, when you look at the way Ohio State runs that offense and they spread teams out, and then they like to run out of that set. Typically you put that linebacker or that safety that comes down in the box, they're typically ignoring Stroud and they're just collapsing on those 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 short run plays that Ohio State likes to run and have made a living off of for the last 10 years. Stroud actually kept 2 of those from a read option perspective and actually took it, which I think definitely is another mismatch that can come from Ohio State. Defensively, Ohio State's defense has been playing really well. JTT from a defensive side of things, I'm not going to try to say his last name out of respect, but the game that he had, against Penn State, where he goes forced fumble, he goes tipped interception, he goes pick six. Knowles has them flying to the football. I like for the most part where they're at. I worry a little bit about Larry Johnson's rotations up front. One of the things I like to see now this late in the season is who's my top 6 guys on the D line, and he's still rotating about 10, just rolling in and rolling out. And I just think it's really tough for those guys to get into any type of rhythm within the game. Offensively, they'll be fine, barring playing in another hurricane in relationship to throwing the ball. I thought it was the worst game Day has coached in quite a while from a game plan perspective. They knew the weather was going to be shit for 2 days going into the game. And you still come out and you're trying to throw the ball, down the field multiple times. And I'm sitting there going, you can't, I don't care if you're into the wind or against the wind. When the wind's gusting like that, it's not a day to toss the rock around the field, right? So they'll be all right. They'll get better. They're going to learn from it. They know, just like Michigan knows, that both teams are trying not to look ahead to that Saturday after Thanksgiving, but both teams are definitely looking ahead to that Saturday after Thanksgiving. Period.
My big question is going to be, and again, you still got time, is I was really surprised in that game they couldn't just line up and physically beat you up front. I just kept saying, I don't even care if you get under center. I know they don't get under center. Run the football. You should be able to push Northwestern around. Run the football. And I said, if you take the game last year against Michigan, they threw the ball, I think, 50 times against. Now, they were behind, so they had to throw the football.
Yep.
But I just said Ohio State should manhandle Northwestern up front.
And I don't disagree. That's just not the way they're built, though. I mean, honestly, that O-line is, they're the tale of two lines, because when you watch them pass protection, pass pro wise, they're really solid. Their tackles are good, but they really struggle up the middle. Their two guards really struggle putting their ears back, which is why you really got to run to the outside a little bit. And that's where they got to run away from that interior pressure. And they really have struggled to get it. Northwestern was a perfect example. They loaded the gaps really well. And unfortunately for them, their running back that bounces into the outside was Henderson, and he didn't play on Saturday. And you're asking Williams, who is a great bruiser, but he is not the bounce it outside and take it and stretch the field, right? So yeah, no doubt, Rock. I have, we'll obviously predict the Michigan game in a couple of weeks, but I have a lot of concerns from a matchup perspective of how that one shakes out, without a doubt.
Well, I know that Coach Medicis is going to die to jump in here, because he predicted the Syracuse Orange to go 8-3 or 9-3. And we said that second half of the season they could collapse. They've now dropped 3 in a row. What's going on with the Orange?
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Let it out.
Again, it goes back to the inept coaching and management of Dino Babers. And you can say what you want and you can put your head down. This is the worst Clemson team, and I, Jake, you correct me if I'm wrong, in a long, long time. And the fact that you blow your chance to beat a top 5 team because you take points off the board to go for it on 4th and 2, and you don't run with your quarterback, you don't run with your All-American, and instead you want to get fancy and you take points off the board. And then we're all going to talk about the not taking the timeout and wasting 28 seconds at the end of the game, down 6. This has been going on for years, so it's not a surprise at all. But again, Tucker ran the ball 6 times, and I think the best part of that game was Sean McDonough at the end of the game. Tucker makes a nice run down the sideline, and he says, "Oh, Sean Tucker out of witness protection gets the ball and goes for a couple." I mean, if Ohio State has a guy that they're promoting as a Heisman hopeful, are they giving him 6 carries in their biggest game of the year? It just blows my mind. And then you turn around, you play a Notre Dame team, that is getting a lot better. And I know Ohio State's going to hang their hat right now on Notre Dame and Notre Dame being much better, but that Notre Dame team now playing against Ohio State would be an interesting game, because the defense kind of slowed Ohio State down for most of it, and they didn't really have an identity offensively. Now they have an identity. They got 2 backs that can run the ball. I still think Ohio State beats them, but I think that would be a much more interesting game if they played now, than when they did early on. But they just flat out beat us up front. Syracuse is beating up I mean, the linebacking cores, I think they're down 2 starting linebackers. The D line, they're down 3 starters. So they're just getting beat and worn down. And that's how Clemson ended up winning that game. They finally started to run the ball. I mean, Syracuse was fortunate. They got a couple of bounces. They returned the fumble for a touchdown. They had a ton of turnovers that, again, they didn't cash in. I mean, you can question the play calling or what they did, but when you have a guy like Sean Tucker who will not be playing at Syracuse next year because he's either going to transfer or go pro, if you don't use him, shame on you, shame on your staff. So, again, they played Pitt last week. Again, Pitt runs the ball right down your throat. And again, 10 carries for Sean Tucker. Playing with a backup quarterback, you're going to give your horse 10 carries. Again, it's just the play calling and the scheming and the game planning.
Medici, I got to interrupt. I need to clarify how well was Tucker running that ball on those 10 carries? Because if I recall the little homework that I did do, I believe I think he had 10 carries for 1.9 yards average. So why does that warrant, if I'm the offensive coordinator, to continue to give Mr. Tucker the rock when he can't even average over 2 yards a carry?
Okay, Mr. Cebus, if I may call you Mr. Cebus.
About the first time anybody's used Mr. in front of mine.
If you have a guy that has a chance to break it at any point, so let's say he's 10 carries for 19 yards, like he did against Pittsburgh, but then he breaks one for 55 and it's a touchdown. Do you think that's a better chance of moving the ball and scoring in a one-possession game as opposed to dropping back with your backup quarterback and taking 40 yards, 4 verts almost every play, or running for your life because you can't protect your quarterback? It was like standing and watching Tommy DeVito under center and them just running 4 verts 40 times a game because he had to throw it deep before he got sacked or he was running for his life. It was disappointing. I felt like I was back 2 or 3 years ago when we had these same exact issues. And again, this is supposed to be a veteran offensive line, and Clemson manhandled them. And again, we're talking about a Clemson team that's been down. They're not as good. There's not as much first-round talent on that line. Notre Dame was in the backfield all game. And Pittsburgh, again, this isn't Pittsburgh of last year. They graduated a ton of seniors. And the kicker of the whole thing is Pittsburgh's best player is from Syracuse. He went to CBA and absolutely dominated the game. He controlled the game. And he was a linebacker that Syracuse didn't even recruit. So again, it just goes back to, at some point, if you want this program to survive and not go back to four wins and 3 wins, and then your occasional, 7 or 8 wins when you get a good quarterback that can kind of carry you to some victories.
Hey, college basketball for Syracuse fans, college basketball season started. 6-6, 7-5. Syracuse going to a bowl game. A lot of people, not like you, Medicis, the diehard fans, will say we went to a bowl game. We haven't been to a bowl game in so long. We'll take it. More practice. We'll take a bowl game.
We'll absolutely take a bowl game. And if you asked going into the season, if you're 6-3 right now and going into the last 3 games, absolutely you take that and you run with it. But I think the expectations changed throughout the year. And we said this when they were 5-0. If they finished the year 6-6 or 7-5, will that be a letdown? Absolutely. Especially when you look back and you say, you probably should have beaten Clemson. And now you got a backup quarterback. You don't know if Schrader is going to be back. You don't know who's going to be the quarterback.
Have you heard anything with him? With Schrader?
Nothing yet.
Because I've heard through reading some things, I think he got in an argument with one of the coach and everything. I think it's more discipline, even though they're saying it's an injury.
It's a lower body injury.
A lower body injury.
Yeah, but I think the word was
that a hockey injury report out there.
That Notre Dame game, he got into a huge argument and said some things to to the coordinators and everything. So I wonder if he's putting him on, discipline and stuff. So
I just think it's funny to watch. They're 5-0, 6-0, and
Ranked.
ranked. Dino's fine. So glad we stuck with him.
Whoa,
And
whoa, whoa.
now all of a sudden,
Wait.
they take 3 L's, and we're back to this is why I told you this is the worst coach
Well,
that's ever been walked the
Medicis is-
sideline.
Second.
Where's
Medicis has
where's
always
Paul?
said that he
Oh,
wanted.
I know Medicis has had it out for.
I said he should have been fired 2 years ago.
Yeah, I hear the Tucker thing. I watched the Clemson game and I was right there with you, Medicis. I was yelling at my TV, saying give it to Tucker. He had what 6 carries that game and he had busted a long run.
Yeah,
6 and caught a couple passes out of the backfield,
Yeah.
right? So solid. But to me, the Notre Dame game as well. He didn't run the ball for squat in that Notre Dame game either. I think he had 15 or 16 touches, and I want to say he averaged like 2.8 or maybe a little over 3 yards a carry. So I have a hard time banging the drum on an O coordinator to hand the ball off to the best running back that Syracuse has ever seen when he's not producing. And it might be the O line, right? I don't, you got a better insight on it than I do. But at the same time, I can't just feed this horse and watch him keep getting me 2 yards and fall down and go back to 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 6.
But here's what I'm going to say, and I'm not a football coach, so Rock, you can jump in on this, but there's other ways to get him the ball. You don't have it doesn't have to hand off. You can get him out.
Fair.
You want to get your speedster, your home run hitter out in space as much as possible. So running.
But the defense knows that he's your only home run hitter too, right? I mean, the defense knows that's your only guy too that can take it to the house as well, right? So I mean, that's probably the one guy that they're worried about not letting beat them as well, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely,
yeah.
So I'll just say this, Jake, you might agree with me on this, but I think the reason why they have to run them early. They have to run them in the first half. The last couple of weeks, the second half, Syracuse has been behind a couple scores. And their whole game plan has kind of changed. Me personally, I would run him more in the first quarter, get him going, try to choose some clock, long drives, but they're not running them much the second half because they've been behind. I would run them early in the game more.
Well, they were up 2 touchdowns against Clemson at halftime, and they were down by 3 against Pittsburgh. So outside of the Notre Dame game where they were down 21-7 at half, I mean, they've been in situations where you come out in the third quarter, it's 10-7. Your game plan really doesn't change much, and you're up 21-7. If ever there's a time to run the ball and really start wearing them down and keep that defense on the field, that would be the time. So, again, yes, I agree with you. At Notre Dame, you're passing the ball. You also, at that point, Schrader was out. He was hurt, so you're going with your backup quarterback. So, yeah, the situation changed. But, again, if he's playing at Michigan, he's getting 30 carries a game. If he's playing at Wisconsin, he's getting 30 carries a game. He's playing at Alabama, he's getting at least 15 to 20. You play at a better school. I mean, they don't have to be straight handoffs and runs. He's got to get touches, and it's just not happening.
So, you guys, I want to jump through to I got some buy or sell stuff. I don't want to spend too much time on that because I want to jump into the rankings, talk about that, and then do some predictions and more. So, the first one I want to ask you guys, and C-Bus, I'll start with you. Is Jimbo Fisher the head coach at A&M next year? Are you buying or selling that he is?
I'm selling that he is. I think I know his buyout is astronomical, but look at the amount of money A&M spent on recruiting and in turn with the NIL this offseason. You got freshmen getting thrown out of the locker room for smoking weed before the game starts. It just feels to me like the ship has been sinking and now it is on fire. A&M is not going to, I've always felt like A&M's in that really weird spot, right, Rock? Like I've always felt like they think or they really want to be that top elite or in that upper echelon of programs, and they've never really quite been there, and they're always chasing. It just screams like an absolute move that they would make. And I can't say that I blame them, even if, I'm sure some oil tycoon's going to write, some $75 million check to buy him out, but I'd sell that he's going to be back next year.
Jake, how about you? You buying or selling? He's back.
I'm buying. I mean, that's too much. That buyout contract is huge, and I think what might be a little bit of saving is that he had a good recruiting class coming in, I think he still has a good one coming up too. So that might just save him for one more year to see how well he can do. But I just think that buyout, that's a lot of money. So I can't see.
Medicis, how about you?
I think he will because the buyout's 85, almost $86 million. So again, like Nick said, they've spent a lot of money on recruiting. They brought in some recruits and didn't pay anything. But again, that's a lot of money to pony up. So I think he's going to be forced to be there for another year. Wait and see how things go. But it's a train wreck right now.
He probably has to
85
fire all his whole staff, though.
It's 85 million this year, 76 million next year, 67 million in 24, 58 million in 25. So he'll be back. All right, Medicis, let's start with you on this one. You buying or selling the Dion will be at a Power 5 school next season. Prime time.
Now, I would love to buy it, but I'm going to
Rock's
sell.
favorite
I
guy.
think he's too important to the HBCU, and I think he understands that. And I think he wants to build them up to be on par with some of the Power 5 teams. Now, I don't know that he'll ever get there to where he can match up with some of those big boys, but I think he wants to see if he can build them up and bring that to the HBCU university. So I'm gonna sell that. I think he's gonna be at Jackson State next year and for at least the next couple.
Jake, how about you?
I'm buying. I think he's leaving. I think he's got to that point that he's helped those programs, and I think he had his coaches. Some of them will remain there and keep building that program, and he'll always probably give back to to that league and everything. But I mean, he can almost get some of these schools can come in and say, "Hey, what do you want?" And he can 10-year contract this, and boom, there you go. So I can see him going.
C-Bus, how about you?
Yeah, I'm torn on this one, but I'm going to go with Medicis here. I'm going to sell it. I think he sticks around. I think his allegiance to the HBCUs, is really important to him. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Money is eventually going to talk. I just think next year, I think he sticks it out one more year, continues to build that brand. If he has success, next year again, I think you might get a big school that's going to come calling. But for right now, next year, I'm going to sell. He's there.
I'm torn because you guys have heard me say I thought the Georgia Tech job playing in Atlanta would be a good job for him. Now the South Florida job comes up. He can recruit the state of Florida. Now you hear that Lane Kiffin's probably going to be the top candidate at Auburn. One thing I heard this week from somebody on Coach Neuheisel and Chris Childers on Full Ride. I was listening to that, and I forgot who the analyst that came on that said, you know what? Dion's got a good record, since he's been at Jackson State, and what he's done is fantastic. But they were like, to go from the HBCU to a Power 5, you're in control of an empire when you get to the Power 5. Somebody said that they thought that like the South Florida job would be a good stepping stone for him to go to a smaller school like that, then to a Power 5. So I don't know. I mean, I think Dion, if he surrounds himself with the right people at a Power 5 job, I think he can handle it. I think the big question mark is going to be, is the university to give him full control? Like Jackson State's basically said, do what you want, Dion. It's your pro. You just run with it. I don't know if the Power 5s would necessarily do that. So I'm going to say I was all for him getting a Power 5 job next year. I think he comes back because I still think in the back of his mind, he wants Mike Norvell at Florida State gone for that Florida State job. But we'll see. I think he's back next year, though. And I've been on that Dion train for a while. So, all right, Jake, I'm going to go to you on this one. The SEC will get 2 teams into the college football playoff.
I'm buying it. I mean, the way they put Tennessee right at 5, sitting right on the outside, and like you guys said with that Ohio State Michigan game, that you got a 1-loss Tennessee that yes they got lost to Georgia, but they're sitting there and it's just that the timely win or the timely loss that they played them earlier on. But I could see them very easily having 2 win just because of strength of schedule.
C-Bus, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I think, I think the SEC is probably the best conference in football this year, without too much argument. And typically, par holds the course for them. And Tennessee's probably going to benefit from the fact that, Georgia will go win the SEC championship game and they won't have to risk losing, in the conference championship. So they get to hang out with one loss. I think the only way that gets dumped on its head if Tennessee stubs its toe, which I just don't see. They don't really have anybody left that really threatens them from that perspective. But sure as heck feels like to me, Tennessee's in a really good spot as it stands right now.
Medicis, how about you?
Well, I'm buying this 100%. I think the wild card here is LSU. I mean, LSU could win out, beat Georgia in the championship game. And how do you leave them out after the wins they've had with Tennessee and then Georgia in the conference championship? So I think one way or another, whether it's Tennessee, LSU, the SEC will get a second team in.
I'm going to agree because I think Tennessee gets in. I still think LSU is going to lose one more game before the season's over. So I think Tennessee's going to get in. And quite honestly, I mean, when you look at those rankings, which we're going to jump to because I'm going to skip around. When you look at those rankings, to me, Georgia still has obviously the win over Tennessee. Tennessee really to this point still has one of the best wins in college football over Alabama. So when you look at all that, I think Tennessee's in unless somebody else stumbles, but I think they're going to get 2 in. Georgia's in.
I think the LSU win is a bigger win for Tennessee than Alabama.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think I think Bama's kind of exposed themselves. I was scared to call it earlier, but yeah, I mean it's definitely a down year for Bama. But that win in Death Valley, for as bad as they spanked LSU around, that's an awfully big win.
So C-Bus, I'll start with you. We know what the actual college football rankings are. Before we dive into that, give me your top 5.
Top 5? Sure. I'm going to go Georgia 1. I think best, had the strongest win so far and have really kind of showed us that they've been sleepwalking from that standpoint. I'm going to go Ohio State 2. I think Michigan's 3. I think they're darn near neck and neck as it stands right now. I'm actually going to go Oregon 4. And I'm going to go Tennessee 5. No love for TCU. Yeah.
Jake, how about you? Who'd you have?
My top 3 are the same as C-Bus with Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. I'm actually going to go Tennessee 4, Oregon 5, LSU. I mean, I just don't have respect for TCU. I know they're winning, but heck, I want to put LSU above them.
Medicis, what'd you have?
I got Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, like everyone else. Then I got Tennessee 4, and I got TCU 5 and LSU. Again, I can't forget that 49-3 opening game for Oregon. I can't see by it, and I still don't see them winning out in the Pac-12. So I'm keeping them on the outside. I think Tennessee's in right now, and TCU's again. If TCU wants to be taken seriously, this is the week they have to put up and win that game and win it kind of convincingly. And if they can do that against a Texas team that kind of has looked good at times and struggled at other times, I think that's the win that kind of puts them back into the top 4.
I had Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Ohio State 3. I did have TCU at 4, Tennessee 5, and then I had Oregon. And to me, if you guys go back and look at, I think Tennessee's in a good spot regardless. But if you look at TCU when the season started, and I know it's a much different schedule now. They beat a ranked Oklahoma team at the time, who obviously Oklahoma now has fallen off the wagon. They beat a ranked Kansas State team who had a few big wins. They've kind of beaten 4. Texas Tech was ranked at the time, and they just, Oklahoma State, they shellacked. At the time, they beat 4 ranked teams. So I think if we're going to say a lot of, if this one wins out, they got a shot. I think they lose in Austin this week, and I think people can fall off the TCU. I think they go down there and I think they lose. Michigan, Ohio State, interchange them however you want. I don't really think it matters. Georgia's in. Georgia's going to get to the SEC championship. Even if they lose, you're not going to drop them out of the top 4. So the actual guys: Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Tennessee, Oregon, LSU, and then USC. And they kept Bama and Clemson in. I don't know if either one of them still have a chance. But when you guys saw the initial rankings come out, and Cbus, I'll start with you and work our way down. Did anything stand out to you?
I didn't necessarily I disagreed with TCU being at 4. I just, I don't trust the Big 12. And I know what you're saying, Rock. I mean, I argue, TCU's 2 best wins this year are Oklahoma State and Kansas. And not saying, and I love Kansas's story, by the way, like fantastic college football story this year. One of the better ones that I like. But I just look at them and go, man, you're right. Okay, they played some ranked teams, but a lot of those teams blew out to be Fugazi, right? So, I thought TCU maybe a little bit higher than I thought. The one that I guess, to me, I guess really kind of jumped out was really Bama staying at 9, and I get it, but it was the one that I probably had the biggest issue with from the standpoint of, they've lost 2 games now, and they've been in 2 other close games that you could really argue they could have taken losses on. And I understand they're Alabama, but man, like, to me, I look at Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss better than I like Bama. I feel like UCLA could have been a notch or two up. The other one that I thought was kind of eye-raising that was kind of funny to me was, I think Illinois snuck in as like the 21st team in the CFP.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, you lose to Michigan State. It's an automatic. It's an automatic DQ from that perspective.
Jake, anything surprise you?
I think USC. I mean, they really, I feel like, haven't really played too much, and their defense, they're giving up a lot of points to some mediocre teams, and it's almost a shootout. I mean, I know their offense is scoring like crazy, but I just can't see them with a solid team competing that, are going to be able to hang with that. When Cal put up all those numbers and they had the battle at the end, they lost to Utah. I can't see USC in the top, in the top 10. I still think Alabama's a better team. Ole Miss, Clemson, there were better teams than USC in the top 10.
Medicis, what'd you think?
USC favored by at least a touchdown against Clemson.
Did you just say Clemson's better than USC?
I was going to say USC at least a touchdown favorite.
They don't have I bet you DJ would probably go out and throw 500 yards.
Yeah, but you know what?
He would forget to tie his shoes and fumble, and it'd be 2
he would still put up
scores.
Great numbers.
I don't know that Clemson would score 25, 30 points on them. And their
Cal
defense
scored
stinks.
35 on them, and it was or 36, and even Arizona. All these teams out in the
hey, watch out for the Wildcats, man.
Yeah, so I agree. I think
Kyle's quarterback threw for 400 yards. So imagine a decent quarterback.
Well, but Clemson doesn't have
I was saying, not sure DJ's a decent quarterback. Look at definition of decent.
I thought the fact that they kept Bama at 9 was interesting because, again, we're weeks away, and normally this is where one of the big boys kind of lose or something. So you could easily say TCU is going to lose and get knocked out. Ohio State and Michigan, one of them is going to lose. Oregon, USC, they're going to play each other possibly, so one of them is going to lose. You said LSU might lose a game. Alabama plays Ole Miss. They come out and they have a good win and some things happen. All of a sudden, Alabama sneaks back into the discussion because they only dropped to 9 would be crazy.
Well, you know what I think is crazy? And I really didn't have too many problems with the rankings. I just originally saw and said there's 3 Pac-12 teams that are all in there. I mean, Utah, USC, or USC's just done enough every week to survive. We'll see what they do. I mean, it's still right there in front of them. I think the other interesting thing is going to be if LSU gets there to the SEC championship game. I'm not saying they're going to beat Georgia. I don't think anybody left is going to. I think Georgia's hands down the best team in the country. But let's just say they get and they win the SEC championship. Tennessee hammered LSU, and Tennessee still got the one loss.
In Baton Rouge, too.
In Baton Rouge, yes. But what if, okay, so what if Ole Miss beats Alabama this week, and now everybody's going to say, that win over Alabama doesn't look so good, is now Ole Miss beat them. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions down the stretch. I still think, C-Bus, I still think it's too bad that Michigan, Ohio State, the losers out.
The conference let them down, though, right?
But it's,
like
we're the
looking at
conference.
this. Yeah, I mean, Penn State being 14 is Fugazi as well. They're not the 14th team, best team in the country by any stretch. Illinois, like we said, being 21, boom. And then after that, it's garbage, dude. It's bad. I mean, shoot, Purdue couldn't even get the train to midfield on Saturday. Did you see that coming out of
Engineering school right there?
Yeah, holy crap. They had to push the train to get it off the field. Woo.
Mm-hmm. So you guys, let's jump to some predictions. I got a bunch on here to pick this week, and I put the spreads in here too. Medicis, we'll start with you and kind of go up this way, and then we'll switch it up. The first one, Missouri's at Tennessee. Tennessee's a 21-point favorite. Any chance Missouri pulls one out?
One of my basketball guys is actually going to this game, so he's been singing Rocky Top now for the last week or so. I think there's no chance Missouri keeps this game close. I think Tennessee wins, and again, they're playing to try to get in that Final Four. So I think they come out and they hammer them. Jake,
how about you? Who you like?
Yeah, I think Tennessee's coming off being kind of mad, and I could just see him trying to make another statement and just blow them out. That Georgia was close to him, and Tennessee wants to come out and just crush them.
C-Bus?
What's the spread?
21.
Man, I don't think Missouri's going to win, but I would take the points in this scenario. Missouri has played a lot of teams close. They played Georgia, I think, to a 4-point game. They lost they held Kentucky, I think, to 17. If I recall right, I think they played. I want to say they played Florida close too. Maybe they'll give like 21 or 28 to Florida. Not that Florida's offense is great, but I just think their defense is better than people give it credit for. I don't think they have the horses to score with Tennessee, but I sure as heck wouldn't be surprised, if that one's a little bit closer than people think. Maybe Tennessee by 10.
C-Bus, you said defense. I'll give you guys a stat on this. Missouri last year was like 120 something in defense. They're a top 15 defense this year, and the coach got an extension. Remember, they had Georgia on the ropes for about 3.5, 4 quarters. Yeah. 26-22. Missouri's got players. I would take the points, but I think Tennessee will beat them. But I like Missouri to actually cover.
Yeah, I do too.
This is a weird one. Jake, I'll start with you. LSU at Arkansas. How the hell is LSU only a 3-point favorite in this game? Who you like?
I'm going to go with LSU. I just think everything's clicking right now. And I don't know. You never know because Vegas always knows that stuff. So 3 points. So I wonder if they know something we don't know, that someone might be hurt or something like that. But I was shocked with that line with 3 points. You would think it would be 10 or so, but maybe they're thinking of the hangover from beating Alabama. But I'm going LSU. I think probably double digits.
C-Bus, who you like?
Didn't Arkansas lose to Liberty?
Yes.
Yep.
A 7-1 Liberty who plays Connecticut this week.
Just checking. I got LSU by 10 here. I do think that there's a little bit of a potential hangover there for LSU. I love LSU's quarterback. I love the fact that he can kill you both with his legs and with his arm. Too much down the stretch.
Medicis, who you got?
Yeah, I got LSU. I actually got LSU winning big. Again, Arkansas, there was a lot of hype early on with them, but again, that Liberty loss, not looking good for the SEC right there. So, yeah, LSU.
Your brother-in-law dropping Corby Jones in the chat. I freaking love it. I had to call out Corby Jones. That's a fantastic reference.
I like LSU. I actually already bet him on DraftKings, so I'm going LSU.
I'm jealous. I can't bet him until January 1st here in Ohio.
All right, so let me start. Who did I start with yet on a prediction yet?
You got
Medicis, you, right?
Medicis, yeah, it's
All
Medicis
right.
this time.
So Medicis, I'll go with you. Alabama at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is plus 12 at home.
I'm gonna go Bama. I think Bryce Young is ready for a big game, and again, this is the sort of game where Nick Saban all of a sudden out of nowhere gets his guys fired up, and it's a chance to shut up Lane Kiffin for him. So I'm going Bama, and I think they cover as well.
Jake, how about you?
I don't know, because Lane always does pretty decent against the old ball coach. I'm gonna go Bama. I think they're gonna win on a last second field goal. So
Okay. C-Bus?
Man. All right, I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna take Ole Miss. I'm gonna take them to win. I just think that this is not Bama's year. They look disjointed. They've had some injuries. That O-line has not been great for them. Young, I still think he's not 100% right, healthy wise. He's not going to tell you that. I hate to pick against Saban. He's the greatest college football coach, obviously of our lifetime. But I'm gonna take Kiffin and the boys in Ole Miss. 3:30 kick. I'm gonna take them for the win. Close one, sneaker.
I've been on 2 college coaches for the last, I don't know how many years. One was Josh
2.
Heupel. I've been on Josh Heupel's train. I thought that
But
was
add
a
a
great
0
hire.
to that too.
Yep. And then I'm a huge Lane Kiffin guy. I love Lane Kiffin. I think he's great at the transfer portal. I just think he'd be a fun guy to play for. I would take Ole Miss with the points. Here's what worries me about this game. Everybody in the media is saying it's not the Alabama of old. Alabama's losing a step. Nick Saban's losing a step. They just don't look the same. I can see them hammering Ole Miss, and then when the polls come out again next week, we're going to say, holy shit, they moved Bama up again. They looked impressive. So I'm going to take Ole Miss with the points, but this could be one of those games where they just hammer Ole Miss. So I don't know. We'll see. I like the points. I'll just leave it at the points.
Yeah, no, it's fair. My biggest concern with Ole Miss, Rock, was they really haven't. I mean, the one game they've played of substance was LSU, and they got rocked pretty good.
now, do you think with Alabama, how we say they don't look the same? Do you think that has anything? Because I mean, think about their 2 previous coordinators, Stark and Lane, and then you go to what's his name? That's like almost a pro style Bill O'Brien. That's almost like pro style offense. Like it's nothing what Lane and Stark used. They were very creative.
Well, I think you look at it and you say we're so used to every year Bama undefeated playing in the playoff. They lose one game, they still get to the SEC championship game. But now it's like they lose 2 games. It's like, holy shit, Alabama never loses 2 games. I don't think it's over yet.
It's like their offense is totally different from those 2. I mean, I know it's 2 great coordinators before that, but it's just, I think Bill O'Brien's more conservative. I feel like he's more conservative almost.
Your brother-in-law is also right. You did love Scott Frost too. He's not going to let that go, and he should remind you of that.
I thought that was a great hire, but hey, he might get the South Florida job, so we'll see. A big one here, guys. Tulane's got a shot to get into a New Year's 6 bowl game against one of my dad's old players. Herb Hand's the line coach for UCF. They've been playing better. I'm going to start this one. As much as I want to pick UCF, I think Tulane gets it done. I like Tulane big in this one. Medicis, who you got?
I also got Tulane winning. I think it's going to be a close game. Again, Tulane's playing well. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and they're fighting for a chance to get into that. What do they got to get? Top 16, stay in this top 16. They get a New Year's 6 bowl. So, yeah, I think Tulane wins the game. I think it's close, though.
Jake, how about you?
Get on the bus, Gus. You can't bet against him.
Gus.
I think he's going to get another Power 5 job. How he's doing well there. So I'm going UCF. They
are going to the Big 12 next year, so we'll see what happens. Medicis, C-Bus, what do you got?
Yeah, give me UCF. I think I thought the win against Cincinnati was a huge win for UCF. Showed me a lot, and then they followed it up and beat Tulsa, which I thought, obviously it's Tulsa, but not to lose that game or stub your toe after such a big win. I'm going to take UCF.
Medicis, I'm going to start with you on this one. How about Florida State at Syracuse. Syracuse getting 6.5 at home. Who you like Saturday night?
Well, it depends on who's playing quarterback at Syracuse. If it's Garrett Schrader, I'm sticking with the orange. I think Schrader's such a difference maker. And again, what they do with him at the helm with that offense is completely different when they have the freshman out there. So again, it goes with the quarterback. If Schrader's there, I'm picking Syracuse. If it's not Schrader, they're probably going to have the same game plan, and it's going to be ugly. So it all depends on the quarterback.
C-Bus, who you got?
Give me Florida State. I think they're playing really well. Good football, blown out the last couple teams that they played. Riding high after smacking around that fraud of a coach, Mario Cristobal, in Miami. So give me Florida State. Give it to me big by 14, just so Medicis can start his Fire Babers chant some more.
Jake, who you got?
I'm gonna say Florida State. Florida State's been playing well, even though they got the 3 losses, but they were all in those games. And Travis, the quarterback, has been doing pretty well. Every time I've seen him, he's making great reads. And we all know Syracuse is only going to hand the ball to Tucker 5 times this time, so we don't have to worry about that one.
Florida State double digits. I think they get it done at the Dome this week. C-Bus, TCU at Texas. Here's another funny line. Texas is favored by 7 at home.
I know.
Who you like?
I hate that because if that line's a little closer, I think I'm going to take Texas. I think that maybe this is where TCU stubs their toe. I think Quinn Ewers is a heck of a quarterback. Got recruited to a really good school and decided to go to a lesser school, but I won't hold that against him. But no, I like Texas. I think they're poised for another big game. They strike me as that team that just loves to play up. Texas does, and then loves to play down to who they're playing against. They're going to be up for this game in Austin. Give me Texas, but it'll be close. It's going to be close. I don't know if they cover the 7, but it'll be close.
Jake, who you got?
Oh, that's a tough one because I think part of me thinks TCU is going to come out and try to make a statement of like, this is why we belong in the top 4. But I just think Texas, like C-Bus says, I think they're on prime time. They're a different team than when they're hidden behind on just on the Big 12 network. So I'm going to go Texas, and I'm going to go a close one.
Medicis?
Robinson's a stud, man. I think he's going to be too much. I think Texas wins the game, and it's going to be fun to watch Texas. Feed him the rock and let him go to work and see what happens. So, I got Texas in this one.
I like Steve Sarkisian. I thought this was a good hire, but they're still finding ways to lose these really close games. I think Texas has better talent. Two things that I'll say is Sonny Dykes is way ahead of schedule at TCU because I don't think anybody thought TCU would be where they're at right now. I think Sonny Dykes and Jim Mora should be up for the coach of the year because I think both of them have done a good job. And who would have thought I'd be saying Jim Mora at 5-win Connecticut has done a good job. I like Texas at home. I think they cover the 7. I think they find a way to put it together. And I think that great run by TCU, who still has a shot to play for the Big 12 title. But I'm going to go with Texas at home. I think they do cover the 7 points. All right, guys. The best offense in the FCS. If they win out, I still think they get it at large bid in. They had a great game against Holy Cross, which I think was one of the best college football games of the year. Lafayette at Fordham. Jake, who you got?
Well, I don't know how – I know in the previous years, Lafayette's been a pretty dominant school, but I don't know how they've been lately. But, the way Fordham's offense have been scoring, especially against Holy Cross, how can you go against them on that? I mean, they've been a well-oiled machine, putting up a lot of points. So I'm going with Fordham.
All right. Medicis, who you got?
This will be a game first to 50 wins, and I think Fordham's the only team that gets over 30. So I think Fordham wins big. Again, outside of Holy Cross and Fordham, Patriot League's kind of down this year, especially with Colgate struggling. So I got Fordham big.
C-Bus?
Fordham by 17.
All right, by 17. I like them big. I thought Colgate would have been better. Normally, the Patriot League's a one-team bid into the playoffs, the FCS playoffs. But I think this year, I think if Fordham can win out, they should have beat Bobcat U. They should have beat your boy Hookman's Ohio team.
Yeah, right.
I think they win big. I think they win out, and I think they get a chance to play in the playoffs. And I think they'll be a tough out if they get in for anybody. So I'm going to go with Fordham. The Quarter Jug. This is the big rivalry game, D3 game. They're playing at Yankee Stadium. There should be about 40,000 there for this game. I'm going to start with Medicis, your alma mater in Cortland, against Ithaca.
Well, I wore my Cortland jersey around work all day today, and it's driving me crazy that you're calling it the Quarter Jug. It's the Cortica Jug.
I say the Quarter Jug, and I get to say what I want, damn it.
Okay, in the Cortica Jug, for those that don't know, you have 9-0 Ithaca ranked 13th in the country against 9-0 Cortland ranked 12th in the country. So it is a big rivalry. Obviously, I'm going Cortland here. That offense has been on fire. They've scored over 60 points multiple times this year. We're over 50 again last week. So I got Cortland in a close game.
Jake, who you got?
Well, I'll be one of those 40,000 sitting in the stands.
Are you going?
Game. I'm going.
Awesome.
I'm going. Even though both teams, I went to Brockport, they were both rivals, so kind of hate picking one of them. But my good friend who was in my wedding is Fitzpatrick, who is leading that Cortland, which was a great hire, and he is an offensive mind guy, and they are putting up points left and right. I think it's going to be a close one because that's the type of rivalry you can throw the record out the window, and it's just always a hard-fought game. And I think last year came down to a field goal block. So I'm going to go with Cortland. I'll be sitting on the Cortland side, even though that pains me being a Brockport guy, but I'm going for Cortland.
C-Bus?
Eeny, meeny, miny, Cortland. I like it. Medicis sold me, and if they lose, I'm blaming him.
Medicis, I got Cortland by double digits. I think they beat them by at least 10 or more. I think it's
struggled lately, so that wouldn't surprise me. They struggled
Jake,
last week.
Jake, you think he'll stay there? You think he'll try to go? Would he be a coordinator at a higher level, or does he like it there?
Oh, he loves it there. And it was when we were at Utica, he went to Morrisville, and then this came over, and it was almost a no-brainer for going. And then he said, he goes, the only way he would leave is if it was a higher up, like a coordinator or even a head coach of a higher level school. But another Division III, I don't think so. Which is also great. He's working at New York State College, so he gets the state benefits, state retirement system, and everything. So, if he keeps going, who knows? Maybe could be I don't know if he would go for a Colgate or something, but definitely he would look at something higher if someone came knocking.
When he was at Morrisville, we used to have him on the radio every year. So I'll have to every time I reached out, he always came on with us. So maybe after the big win, we'll get him on Sunday. So, all right, Nick, Medicis, Cody wanted us to pick. I didn't have it on here, but we can do it real fast, and then we'll do our pardon shots. The big Oregon fan, so he wants us to pick Washington at Oregon. And right now, Oregon is a 13-point favorite at home. Who you got?
Picking Washington. Cody drives me crazy. He texts me all the time. he drives me crazy. He talks nonsense about the Bills. Washington by 1,000.
Jake, who you like in that one?
I'm going to go Oregon for now. I think, but Oregon's going to slip up later on. I mean, Bo Nix still has his Tiger stripes from the Auburn days, and you know how he has one great game, another great game, and then he has an awful game. So it's only a matter of time, ticking time bomb, that Oregon will blow up.
C-Bus?
If this one was in Washington, I would be seriously tempted in taking the Huskies. This one in Eugene, no chance. Oregon by double digits.
Michael Penix Jr.
I had we didn't get the time. I actually had Bo Nix as a Heisman guy that we should at least talk about. Not saying that he should get invited, but at least talk about. I think Oregon's going to be a really, really, and I hate to say this, Medicis, because we deal with them every week. But I think if Oregon wins out, and I think they got a legit shot to get there. I think they've played some really good football. So I think they win big. I think they win big at home. So Cody will probably like that, but I think they win big at home. All right, guys, I'm going to pull us off. Let's do our final goodbyes here. Let me pull you guys off the screen.
Oh,
all right,
boy.
Jake, you're the man.
The first one up.
First one.
Well, looking at the playoff thing, it's always fun thinking about the 12 teams, and how different it would have been this year, and how you could see how much that transfer portal has changed the game of football. You see a lot of guys that transfer from schools and they're playing right away and making a huge impact. And it just, it helps college football a lot, where teams can go into that portal, get guys and help. And it just balances all the way across. In the years past, we've always just said, well, it's, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson's there. And then you're just looking for the fourth team. Now it's fun talking about, okay, how we can, it's going to go down to the last week of who are the final four teams in. And it's not even a clear cut who's the dominant team. Yeah, Georgia's up there, but who knows? Georgia can always lose. But the rest of the groups, college football is, in a great spot compared to like the NFL, where they only talk about 4 teams that can win the Super Bowl, where, they're talking about college football and multiple teams could be right there in the end and anything could happen. So I'm excited and can't wait for that 12-team playoff to happen. So.
Hold on, Medicis.
All right.
You're up.
Well, it comes down to 2 things. Do I want to talk about firing Dino Babers, or do I want to take some time to talk about my alma mater, a D3 powerhouse, possibly? Again, Jake, your buddy's been doing an outstanding job at Cortland. To have a Division III game go moved from a 1 o'clock kickoff to noon so that it could be on Yes Network for all to watch is an exciting thing for a Division III school. So I'm a proud alum. I'm looking forward to the game. I wish I could go down, but obviously I can't with youth basketball going on. So I'll be watching it and cheering on Cortland, and hopefully on the run to a little bit of a run in the playoffs this year. It's been a while since we've been to about the quarterfinals, and I don't know that we've made it very far past then. But the way this offense goes and the points we're scoring, we'll see what can happen. So again, not too much to talk about. Go Cortland, and again, we'll see what happens.
All right, C-Bus.
All right, I'm going to take it serious for a brief moment. I think we all probably saw and read and if we're had our head in the sand with Kyrie Irving's debacle and statements that we've seen in this kind of back and forth with its anti-Semitism, run around. And, I saw something today that just really made me roll my eyes. Nike came out today. Phil Knight comes out today and said, hey, we decided to suspend our relationship with Kyrie effective immediately. We're no longer going to launch his shoe. We're so saddened and disappointed, blah, 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 blah. I think we all need to remind ourselves, Nike, I think it was March of 2020. You guys get busted for forcing hundreds of women upon thousands of women to produce your shoes in a factory. And now you're going to come out and play the moral high ground that you have a problem with what Kyrie says. I have a huge problem with what Kyrie says. I'm all about free speech. We're in a really bad spot right now where we think free speech means you don't have consequences for what you have to say. But let's get off our high horse. Let's not judge every single person and think, Nike, that you get to play the moral high ground here. He without sin shall cast the first stone. Phil Knight, please shut the hell up.
Well, I was going to go on C-Bus. I think you did a Jim Harbaugh thing a few weeks ago on the last show. I'm going to go after James Franklin. I was a big James Franklin guy for a long time. But when everybody came after Jim Harbaugh and said, fire Jim Harbaugh, James Franklin is 1-8 versus Ohio State. 3-7 against Michigan, 3-6 versus Michigan State, 2-15 against top 10 teams, and 11-20 against the top 25. Not bad for a $75 million contract. Why is nobody talking about James Franklin exiting Penn State, rich alumni that would easily be able to afford that, when everybody attacked, get rid of Jim Harbaugh? Jim Harbaugh can't win the big game. Throw Jim Harbaugh's record out. The stats that I said earlier about how much more relevant Michigan is now than what it was 7-8 years ago. Penn State, no relevancy since James Franklin's been there. So if I'm the alumni at Penn State, and I know they have just the 2 losses, but they lose to Michigan, they lose to Ohio State, and I still think they'll lose one more game before bowl season. So if I'm the alumni at Penn State, you got to quit giving James Franklin a pass, because in my eyes, I think he's got to go at Penn State. And one other thing, Big Ten, I said it earlier, I'm going to keep repeating it. Get USC and UCLA in there so the Big Ten can get 2 teams into the college football playoff. So James Franklin, get out. Hold on, I got to get all you guys back in here fast.
Franklin's a bum. Good job, Rob.
Got to get him out. I was a
Terrible.
big James Franklin guy for a long time, but
Terrible.
when I saw those records, get him the hell out of Penn State. Tired of them. Well, guys, listen, appreciate it. Good to have you guys back on. I'm heading to North Carolina next Saturday for Thanksgiving. So we'll probably shoot sometime maybe the first week in December. We'll have Coach Kramer on, so we'll have all of us on again. And we'll be probably either C-Bus, you'll either be saying Ohio State, or I'm going to come at you and say, okay, back-to-back years for Michigan. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But, guys, have a good holiday. I'm sure I'll be talking to you guys through the text. And we'll see you guys again here in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, you got it, guys. Yeah, I don't know. I was just feeling the James Franklin thing tonight with Penn State, but great to have everybody back on. I didn't even get to half the agenda tonight because we spent so much time in some different areas, but that's the best part about doing a podcast. We can go whichever way we want to go. But great to have the guys on again. Like I said, I will be gone Saturday. We'll be doing the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch this week, and then we'll see if we can get everybody back maybe sometime the first week in December. So we can talk about the end of the regular season. We'll probably be talking some of the conference championship games, and then we'll see the final college football rankings as well. So on behalf of everybody here tonight on the Rock Pile, I always say the Rock Pile is where dreams become reality. Have a good evening, everybody.